Say's law? What is its history? What are its assumptions and implications? What are its shortcomings and is it relevant today? Say's law is a concept in macroeconomics. Macroeconomics looks at economy as a whole and studies aggregate phenomena such as overall output, employment, inflation, and national income. Say's law is associated with classical economics, which is the period before 1936 when English economist John Maynard Keynes published his book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. A fundamental belief among classical economists is the self-regulating nature of markets and the idea that the economy has a natural tendency to reach full employment and equilibrium without significant government intervention. Jean-Baptiste Say was a French economist and businessman who was born on 5 January 1767 in Lyon, France to Jean-Étienne Say and Françoise Castanet. He died on 15 November 1832 in Paris, France. Say wrote and published several works throughout his career. One of his most well-known publications is Treatise on Political Economy, in which he described what later came to be known as Say's law. Throughout the 18th century, France faced a mounting economic crisis. A rapidly growing population had outpaced the food supply. Severe winter in 1788 resulted in famine and widespread starvation in the countryside. Rising prices in Paris brought bread riots. The Industrial Revolution resulted in the transition of Europe from agriculture to manufacturing and its population from rural to urban. France and Europe faced upheaval with the French Revolution, Revolutionary Wars, Napoleon's rise, economic warfare, and the fall of the empire, creating instability. Napoleonic policies like the Continental System and increased tariffs stifled French industry, prompting Say to critique the economic consequences of war on both France and England. Against the backdrop of the French Revolution and the period preceding Napoleon's rule, Say authored a treatise on political economy in 1803. His objective was to offer a thorough examination of economic principles, aiming to systematize economic thought and present a coherent framework for understanding economic phenomena. Within this book, he expounded upon what is presently recognized as Say's law. What is Say's law? In simple words, supply creates its own demand. But he did not use these exact words. The expression is often attributed to him as a summary or interpretation of his ideas rather than a direct quote. Let's look at an example. When the producer finishes a product, there's a strong desire to sell it immediately. The concern is that the value of the product might diminish if not sold promptly. Once sold, there is also eagerness to spend the money earned from the sale. The value of money itself is considered perishable. The only way to use the money is by purchasing another product. Consequently, the creation of one product creates an immediate demand for other products. In other words, supply creates its own demand. Classical economists, like Say, believed in flexible prices and wages that can adjust to changes in supply and demand, allowing markets to clear and correcting imbalances through price adjustments. Say's law presupposes full employment, where all resources, including labor, are efficiently utilized, leading to maximum production of goods and services and the natural balance of supply and demand. Classical economics assumes rational self-interest, vital for smooth market functioning, as it implies decisions promoting overall economic stability. Say's law assumes people spend money on goods and services rather than hoard it, expecting a high velocity of money circulating rapidly in the economy. Another assumption is a high and constant marginal propensity to consume, expecting individuals to spend a significant portion of their income, boosting overall demand for goods and services. Say's law applies to both monetary and barter economies, assuming money neutrality, with a focus on real transactions of goods and services. Let's look at the implications of Say's law. Prosperity is achieved through a diverse range of producers and products in the economy, while individuals who consume without contributing to production may impede economic growth. Interconnected business success results in mutual benefits as prosperity in one industry leads to increased purchases, and businesses flourish when situated or engaged in trade with other thriving enterprises. Government policies promoting production, investment, and prosperity in neighboring nations enhance the domestic economy, and the importation of goods, despite a trade deficit, proves advantageous. Caution is advised in promoting consumption, as it can be detrimental to the economy, while prosperity is constructed through the gradual production and accumulation of goods. Effective economic policy promotes industry and productive activity, with decisions on specific goods production entrusted to investors, entrepreneurs, and workers guided by market incentives. Let's look at some of the supporters and critics of Say's law. James Mill, a contemporary of Say, supported the law. His son, John Stuart Mill, a prominent classical economist, acknowledged the essence of Say's law in his writings. Friedrich Hayek, the Austrian economist, expressed ideas aligned with Say's law, emphasizing the importance of production in generating income. David Ricardo, another classical economist, shared some similarities in his views on the relationship between supply and demand. The Nobel laureate and monetarist economist Milton Friedman acknowledged the validity of Say's law, incorporating it into discussions about the role of monetary factors in economic fluctuations. Thomas Robert Malthus, a contemporary of Say, challenged the universality of Say's law, arguing that gluts and overproduction were possible. John Maynard Keynes was a prominent critic of Say's law. He challenged the idea that supply automatically creates its own demand, especially in the context of unemployment and economic recessions. Michał Kalecki, the Polish economist, while developing his theories on the business cycle, challenged Say's law by emphasizing the importance of effective demand in driving economic activity. Joan Robinson, the British economist, a key figure in the development of post-Keynesian economics, was critical of Say's law and emphasized the role of uncertainty in economic decision-making. The Nobel laureate and neoclassical economist, Paul Samuelson, in his influential 1948 textbook, Economics, presented a Keynesian interpretation of macroeconomics that deviated from Say's law. Hyman Minsky, an economist known for his work on financial instability and economic crises, Minsky's theories also deviated from the assumptions underlying Say's law. Let's look at criticisms of Say's law. Say's law assumes full employment. In reality, economies can experience periods of unemployment and underemployment, which may lead to a deficiency in aggregate demand. The law does not explicitly address situations where there is insufficient demand in the economy to absorb the total supply of goods and services. In modern terms, this is known as a demand shortfall or demand deficiency. The assumption that money is quickly spent in the purchase of goods may not hold true in all circumstances. During economic uncertainty, individuals and businesses may choose to hoard money, leading to a reduction in overall spending and demand. Say's law focuses on the real transactions of goods and services, neglecting the role of financial factors and credit in facilitating transactions. Financial disruptions, such as banking crises or credit market freezes, can impact the smooth functioning of Say's law. Say's law provides little guidance on how to address economic downturns or recessions. In contrast, Keynesian economics, developed later, emphasized the role of government intervention and fiscal policy to manage demand during economic contractions. Critics argue that Say's law fails to distinguish between the concept of aggregate demand and effective demand. While total demand in an economy might match total supply in the long run, it doesn't guarantee that all resources are being utilized efficiently at all times. Say's law was developed in a context where the global economy was less interconnected than it is today. In a globalized world, economic conditions in one country can significantly impact the demand for goods and services in another. Say's law assumes that prices and wages are flexible and can easily adjust to changes in supply and demand. In reality, prices and wages may be sticky, and adjustments may not happen as quickly or efficiently as assumed. Is Say's law relevant today? While Say's law may capture certain aspects of economic interactions, it is not considered a sufficient framework to explain the complexities of today's economies. Keynesian economics, which emerged in response to the challenges posed by the Great Depression, introduced a more nuanced understanding of the role of aggregate demand and the potential for demand shortfalls in the economy. That's all, folks. Thank you for watching.